All right, guys, we are back again. COVID cabal. What is going on, people? What is going on? What is going on? It's good to have you back for a Wednesday COVID cabal. Hour earlier than our standard programming, but I want to get this in. I want to get it in. Guys, I have a question. Should I eat some if I eat some grapefruit during this show, is that going to be distracting? No wine today, but if I have some grapefruit, is that going to be am I like you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Bill de Blasio. Are you telling me that if I get vaccinated, I get this delicious grapefruit, and that all I have to do is just go get a COVID shot, and I can have this sumptuous grapefruit? That's what it feels like right now. But don't worry, guys. I won't overdo it. Oof. Damn. Grapefruit sour. All right. We got a good COVID cabal today. We're going to get right into it. I got a hard stop at 5 o'clock, so we're going to get right into it. It's going to be a continuation of the conversation from 2 days ago. I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been observing. I've been scoping out everything that's going on. And after, zooming deep in, getting lost in the murkiness, coming out. And I think I got clarity on the situation here, guys, when it comes to Charlie Kirk's assassination, all of that, all of the usual, all the stuff that we were talking about before. Who did it? What's happening? Why is everything so confusing? I think I got an idea of what's going on now. And part of the reason it was difficult was because when you do zoom too much into something, you can start to lose the forest through the trees. So sometimes the only thing that you can do to understand what's going on is to take a step back. Okay. Now, I don't remember what show it was. It was a while ago, though. It was a while ago. And I talked about assumptions. I think I was talking, it may have been around the time we were talking about the Iran stuff. I was talking about assumptions and how everybody has a certain assumption. The assumption creates the filter for the worldview, and everything kind of goes from there, right? So depending on what your set of assumptions are, it's going to determine your analysis. So what is my assumption? Okay, what is my operating assumption? My operating assumption, and I have good reason, I think we all have good reason for thinking it, is that Trump is a good guy. Trump is our guy. Trump is trying to save America. Trump is fighting against this cabal. Okay? So that is a core assumption. If you don't have that assumption, then you're going to come to all sorts of different conclusions. In my opinion, your conclusions are going to be Looney Tunes because, again, as I've said many times, why even have this conversation? Because if Trump's not on your side, you are fucked. You are fucked. If this whole thing has just been designed, if Trump the entire time has been setting you up to get killed, then you're fucked. You got no way out. You've been outgamed. Okay? But there's no evidence of that because literally everything good is emanating out of Trump and everything bad is emanating out of them, right? And they tried to kill Trump. Trump survived the assassination attempt. Hand of God moment. He is the chosen one. And a lot of people get all, freaked out and butthurt. I'm going to talk a little bit about that stuff too. The sort of hardcore, conspiracy symbolism, people, and the trap involved with that. But this is my assumption, my operating assumption, and I think for good reason, is that Trump is trying to save America. And is Trump alone? Well, he can't be alone, right? Because there's no way that somebody, even as someone as impressive as Trump, could get this far if there wasn't some group backing him. And we've talked about this for years now. That's all the stuff with Q and the, some compartmentalized military groups and whatever, right? There is basically, though, there are patriots in the government, in Western societies, that are working together against this corrupt, infiltrating group. So who is in Trump's inner circle? Well, JD Vance. JD Vance is very clearly being groomed to be Trump's successor. Thank God for that, right? JD Vance, I'm still, guys, I'm still holding out the possibility that Trump could be president in 2028. I don't think it's likely. I'm going to be honest. I think he's going to have this. He's going to have his mark on history sealed, and he's going to pass the torch for the next crisis, which will be coming in the 2030s. And I think he's going to pass that to JD Vance. I think that's where my money's going. If I was going to bet on this, I probably shouldn't bet, should I? But that's where I would go with it. But maybe Trump's going to stick around, but it doesn't matter. Point is that JD Vance is clearly being groomed to be his successor. Trump is showing him how it's done. JD has his own skill stack. He's going to be a great president, especially with another 3 years with Trump. 1 second, real quick. So, aside from Vance, who else is there? Aside from Vance, we have Stephen Miller, right? Stephen Miller is very clearly in the inner circle with Trump and Vance, and he is probably their top strategist in terms of how they are actually supposed to navigate this and how they're supposed to win this fight, right? And there's others. I think Tulsi Gabbard is involved with this inner circle. I think RFK has been pulled into it. I think they kind of tested the waters with Elon, but he was too much of a spurg. So he spurred out on Besant and those people. And so that was it. But, you know, they're still allies. He's just maybe not the inner circle. But somebody who was also in the inner circle was Charlie Kirk, right? And Charlie Kirk was Trump's protege in many ways. And my guess is that Charlie was probably set up to maybe take the reins after Vance. Possibility. Here's the thing about Charlie. And there's a whole threads talking about this stuff about, you know, I'm going to show you one of the guys. He got some interesting stuff. I keep an open mind, obviously, but this guy, Hidden Amaker, it's like major schizo posting. By the way, I'm not saying that the information here that he's talking about is 100% incorrect. I'm not talking about that. She's wearing a Knights of Malta cross. Is that significant? She's Catholic. Okay, Erica Trump. This is relevant stuff. There's relevant stuff in here to talk about. Erica Trump. I keep saying Erica Trump. What the fuck? I mean, she's gonna. Erica Kirk. Erica Kirk is Erica Kirk was one of Trump's Miss America beauty pageant contestants. Trump pulled her on board, and allegedly, you know, ostensibly set up the meeting between her and Charlie, and that's how they got together. Charlie was someone who was, I guess, scouted for talent, and Trump brought him into the circle. Now, look, I think that there's an important distinction here. People talk about handlers. Is Erica Charlie's handler? No, I don't see any evidence that she was his handler. I don't see any evidence of it. Okay. And this is one of the things I want to talk about when it comes to some of these really big conspiracy accounts, which I have gone down and read their stuff. And not just on this topic, on things in general. And I'm going to tell you guys something, and some of you will disagree, and that's okay. But this stuff, these accounts are absolutely designed, including this guy too, RKX. These accounts are absolutely designed to fuck you up big time and to make you lose the big picture. Okay? And I'm going to explain this. I'm going to explain why. they use manipulation in their they use this very, very deep logic and associations to break apart, um, things that you know in your heart to be true, okay? It's they will say things that they will talk about things, like, from a religious perspective, for instance. Um, they'll talk about, the real truth behind Jesus, that Jesus really wasn't crucified. And what they'll do is they'll cite, some old texts that were not used at the that that were not included in the Bible, or that were suppressed or something like that. And they'll use these, and they'll say, look, see, it pokes a hole in it, really. you know Judas was really the great person, and Peter was bad, and there was a fake Jesus, who bad Jesus, who was fake crucified, but the real Jesus wasn't that. And they do this whole thing. So there's like truth. So you're like, okay, Jesus was a big teacher. He was a big, ascended master. But maybe the crucifixion story is incorrect. And they do this kind of stuff. And because they're very good at, they have these texts and stuff that poke a hole in official sort of narratives, religious narratives. I know, if maybe it seems like, where am I going with this? Why am I talking about this stuff? I'm gonna explain. Okay, bear with me for a second here, because this is really important. There's all sorts of really deep and interesting, like, symbolic stuff, esoteric stuff that they bring in to these analysis, and you're thinking, fuck, man, maybe it isn't, maybe they're talking to these guides, or they've tied this together, this secret society, um, and they make you start to question things that you knew in your heart were true. And there's enough of, like, they don't throw everything out; they just poke holes in very, very specific portions. And the issue, of course, is that if you're really paying attention, you realize that as they poke a hole in your, preconceived notion about, let's say, Jesus, or in some sense, I'm not trying to make this connection like that Trump is Jesus, but he is has the will of God behind him. He is bringing this. He's saving Western civilization, and he's clearly a force for good. That's my assumption. I talked about this, right? Because I can see it. The fruits of it are very clear, right? I want you guys to understand and to really internalize, when it comes to analysis. We shall know them by their fruits is one of the most important things that you can ever use to determine whether someone is acting for good or evil. So if Trump's supposed to be this bad person, then why is every fruit that falls from his tree absolutely blessed? Okay? But these accounts will try to make you manipulate that stuff. Okay, so it's the same thing with this Jesus story, right? That these groups, these esoteric people, they poke holes through this text and this random document in, the official story of Jesus, right? But then what you don't realize, if you're not paying attention, is they poke holes in their own arguments. So they might say something like, "Oh, well, you can't rely on these historical texts, because they threw out all these things." And then they'll make their argument using a historical text, right? That's what this guy RKX does. So he says, for 5 years I've been calling out the Patriot pacification program, blah 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 blah, planning the agitation and frustration of American and Western nations by deluging them with hope and promises, all broken, while throwing in their faces the rights of Democrats, socialists, trans identified migrants over their own rights, privileges, immunities. This is the first phase in the plan to groom conservative power base who have most of the wealth into a government support Christian Reich. Okay, so he's of this belief that there's going to be this, like, Judeo-Christian Reich that's going to come in America as a result of all this stuff. All right. So, well, if you go and you look at RKX's stuff, super well researched guy. I'm not saying throw out all of his material by any means. I think he's a smart dude, but if you actually pay attention to a lot of the arguments he makes, he cites stuff to say that this is how the world works. This is what they didn't tell you because of this document. But why is that document more valuable than the document you're throwing out? okay? For instance, the crucifixion of Jesus, this is like Tacitus, like there is almost it's one of the most corroborated events in history. And you can say that well, all those documents were forged. Then we know nothing. There's no point talking about it. Any random little piece of toilet paper you pull out of your ass is not going to have more validity than all these other things. Okay. So why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because there is an absolute campaign afoot to demoralize people who support Trump into thinking that Trump is in bed with all of them. There is absolutely a campaign to do that, to say Trump is really a Zionist, that Trump really is just trying to create an American Reich. Trump is blah, 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 blah. And it is not true. It's not true. Okay. It may be what they want to happen, but it's not what Trump in his inner circle wants to happen. And all this stuff is a big fucking manipulation. Now, I don't know about the Knights of Malta is a secret society. They were the Knights of the Hospital of St. John. They were one of the 3 big crusading groups. Obviously, the second big one, more well known, but the Hospitallers were the first crusaders it was the first order created, followed by the Templars. Right when the Templars were suppressed by King Francis in France, right? When the Templars were suppressed, a lot of the assets of the Templars went to the Hospitallers. Now, there's different narratives about whether that was good or bad. And the Knights of Malta, it's a complicated group, right? There's good versions and bad versions, like it seems like there are in a lot of secret societies. Buttigieg is a Knight of Malta, okay? Buttigieg is actually a Maltese name. If you go to Malta, one of the most inbred countries in the world, you will see many people there named Buttigieg. Okay. But I have also heard good things about the Knights of Malta in terms that they are people who are very much that at least there's a group in the Knights of Malta that has been very involved with fighting against the election fraud and all this stuff. I don't know whether that stuff is true. And to be honest, guys, I really don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about all this. I don't give a fuck about this schizo stuff anymore. I cared about it 5 years ago. And I think it's still interesting to look at, but you can lose your mind going down these rabbit holes and you can lose the big picture. The big picture, again, is this: Trump is trying to save this country. Okay. His fruits are good. And we know that he's not moving it towards some Christian Reich because he in his inner circle always resist opportunities to overreach. The people who are really in MAGA don't want that. They don't want to overreach. Okay? That's why when Pam Bondi yesterday made that stupid statement about hate speech laws, which I don't know whether it was just her being dumb or whether she was taking orders from somebody else, which we're going to get to, who is not in the inner circle, and was trying to move things towards this Christian Reich, whatever position, an extension of the state of Israel, but in America. And you saw immediately that, whether it was on JD Vance's stream, which was totally reasonable, filled with righteous anger, but proportionality. Same with Stephen Miller. Everybody in the administration, in the inner circle, is always trying to do what is right. They are not trying to do this manipulation where, oh, the far left is doing this, so we're using, action and reaction, and now we're going to get where we want to go. The left did this, now we're going to do this instead. Trump doesn't do that. Putin also doesn't do that, okay? There are the people who are actually trying to save this world are not doing action, reaction, solution. They are not reacting like the left, like the communists, Zionists want them to do. They're not reacting. They are burning out this sort of action reaction circuit that the evil powers are always known for doing. Okay. So this is so important to understand, because when you have schizos like this, who are saying, who's benefiting Trump? Trump's going to do this. Trump's going to he's going to make the Christian right. That's what this is all about. There's no fucking evidence. Any of their actions, if they wanted to do that, if they were trying to manipulate the public in that direction, it's not working. It's just not working, because they're not doing it. So it's clear that some people want them to do it, but they aren't doing it. So what's the point of the accusation? The point of the accusation is to demoralize you. Just because this guy has gotten predictions right these last few years, how do you not know that he wasn't fed predictions about stuff so that people would then comes out of nowhere, he gets a bunch of predictions right. Now this person, he's got a rabbit hole that people can go down. And now people will believe it, and they'll start to try to see it everywhere. They'll try to manifest it, but it's really not happening. Okay. This is what's happening. Trump and his inner circle of good people, which is transnational, includes Putin, maybe includes Xi. Xi is kind of like, two-sided with things. He certainly cares about China, though. But, and look, Putin also cares more about Russia than he cares. It's not doing things for America. But they are all here to fight against this really super evil group, right? The Zionist group, communists, whatever, globalists. They're all fighting against this group together. So what is going on right now in America? What is Trump's dilemma? Well, Trump's dilemma is that you have these two factions of the globalists. And I've talked about this a long time ago, but it's worth revisiting, because it actually makes everything very, very clear if you view it through a little bit of a different lens than we did 2 days ago. There are two factions of the globalists, and we've known this, right? You have the neocons, who are the Zionists. Okay, that's more City of London, Israel, right? That's the Anglo-American whatever empire. And then you have another group, the neoliberals, or let's just call them straight up communists, Trotskyites versus Marxists, whatever. These are people who are more like EU, Obama, right? So Clinton was in the neocon faction, as was Bush. Obama, most of the Democratic Party today, increasingly, AOC, right? These are part of the neoliberal faction. Okay? These two factions have their own different agendas that both serve a very higher agenda. And it's not clear how conscious they are of serving that higher agenda, because that higher agenda is the, we get into the layers of the overlords and in the darkness, and they are operating on two different sides. So the neoliberals, this is the let's say that they're more the satanic stream of things, the satanic stream, which is we are trying to degrade and lower people, like pure communism stuff, the stuff that we really think of when we think about communism, the elevation of the most disgusting and degraded over the good in the beautiful, right? And that is the leftist infiltration in America right now. It's very, very all about over Europe. They're the ones that want to mix up everything. They want to create chaos, right? That is their objective. And then you have the neoconservatives, which are more Luciferian, in the distinction being Luciferians, it is all about power and domination and absolute control over everybody else, right? That is the Zionist. They're the ones who want world conquest. They want endless wars, endless bloodshed, and endless boot on the neck of innocent people around the world, genocide, etc., etc., etc. Okay? These are two different factions of the globalists. And you better believe that they compete for turf. Now, they have to work together, because at the end, they are both minds of the devil, right? They are both service to self, dark forces, and they work with each other to subjugate the world. That's how they operate. But they also, being demons, compete for space on the board. And they're very and they always take an opportunity to take space on the board at the expense of the other, right? So Trump and his team, what they have been doing, this needle that they've been threading, has been playing these two factions off of each other, allying and Trump right now, because the neoconservative faction has been beaten down, the neoliberal faction was getting more power. Trump has had to, as a matter of balance of power, work with the neocon faction to take out neoliberal assets. But so he gives them, and they will work with him to gain their little extra space in the board. But he doesn't give them everything that they want. And they don't give him everything that he wants. There's obviously something going on with the Epstein files that is connected to that. Now, you can take the route that, and I think it's a plausible route, that the real Epstein files were destroyed in the last administration, last regime, either tampered with them. What we have left is some sort of fake facsimile or whatever. You can also take the route that there's some people who are being protected from some of the release of this. I don't know that we know the full answer. I think that they were destroyed. I think that the real stuff. I think that we have something that's not really real now, and you can tell the bad faith in the part of the Democrats, and you can tell the fact that Trump doesn't want it released, and from how Cash talks about things. When you see Cash's language, it's very precise and intentional. He doesn't say Epstein didn't traffic. He's saying that files being destroyed or withheld, right? Trump was the one who opened the investigations into Epstein. So it's asinine to say that. I understand people are confused, but it's asinine, and it doesn't make any sense to say that Trump actually was like Epstein person. That is something that they're trying to tell you because they're trying to muddy the waters, like these people. They're trying to say that Erica was used in trafficking children because she was part of this group called the Remaining Angels. I can tell you, I don't believe that for a fucking second. I don't believe it for a second. And I bet people who really do a deep dive in that, if they find anything relevant whatsoever to it, they're going to find the opposite, that probably she was involved in an organization that was actually trying to protect children who were being trafficked by cabal groups. Okay? Because guess what? The cabal traffics children through their networks, and good people that come from the good groups, do things in parallel to rescue those children from those situations. So I bet you anything, and again, I don't have any evidence for this except for my basic judgment that Erica Kirk was connected to Trump, and Trump has been fighting these people and unraveling their child trafficking networks all over. So of course, what they want to do is they want to make you think that everybody is involved with the same stuff as them. Because if everybody's dirty, then you have nowhere to turn. But the fact of the matter is that Biden trafficked hundreds of thousands of children because he's a piece of shit and he was involved with this club. Trump didn't. Trump has ended those networks. So use some fucking common sense when you see this schizo stuff being posted. I think this is a good point, by the way, Michael. I think what they are hiding is not the dirt, but the network. That's very possible with the Epstein network. But I don't want to get digressive on the Epstein network right now. I just say this stuff as an aside. You have these two groups. These two groups are both two halves of the mind of Satan. Okay, you have the Zionists who went full domination, full control, and then you have the communists who want to, who want to have revolution in America, right? So where does this really leave us, right? Where does it leave us? And look, when it comes to the Jew question, obviously that there are the communist group is also backed by a lot of very wealthy Jews like Soros, right? Like Reid Hoffman. Okay. So it's there if you want to see that. It is not only them, in my opinion. But it's certainly there. It's certainly there. And I will say this. you might ask, well, why are there these two separate sides of it? What is the point of, on one hand, having this international communism, everybody destroy white people, take away the countries of white people, turn everybody against each other, turn men and women against each other, basically destroy Western civilization. And then you have this other group that's like, we're going to control your nations overtly, basically, at this point. It's getting more and more overt, right? With the Zionists. What is the point of this? Because really what's happening, and I want to be honest here, like I don't have, regular Jews are not involved with this stuff at all. This is a cabal group that maybe there's a lot of self-described Jews who are in those higher echelons, but your average Jew has like no involvement in any of this stuff. So we always have to be really careful when we talk about these topics. And this is one of the things that Charlie Kirk was talking about, right? How he hated Netanyahu. And I think this is credible. I think this is really credible, to be honest. What Tucker's saying, he's saying that Kirk hated Netanyahu in his war against Gaza despite loving Israel, and that Kirk was tormented until the day he died by Zionist donors for platforming Carlson at the event. Meanwhile, we have Bill Ackman, person who I care very little for, with this text exchange from Charlie Kirk, right? It was great and great. This is Charlie saying like about a week after their, this is the drama, of course, going on the internet right now is that Charlie Kirk was yelled at by some Jewish donor at a meeting that Bill Ackman brokered. He goes on Candace Owens right after that weekend, and he's like exhausted, talking about the pressure, talking about how these people just don't listen. But then you see this text message that Bill Ackman has from Charlie. It was great and great to get to know you better. We should do dinner sometime with the ladies. That's actually Bill saying that. Absolutely, that would be awesome from Charlie. Thank you, I will. There's a few times this fall. But what does Charlie say here? He says, really enjoyed our time together last week. Thank you again for doing that. Some people say Bill made this up. I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he didn't, because that's pretty dangerous to do, to be honest. It's pretty dangerous to do. But let's just benefit of the doubt he didn't. These things can both be true. It can very much be true that he was tired of his Zionist donors. He was pushing back against Netanyahu, but he was also still loyal to Israel and the people of Israel and was trying to help them to take a different course. It's also true that if you're someone like Charlie Kirk, that you could be have very nice private conversations to different people talking about things that might seemingly be different with other people. And when I say seemingly be different, it's like Charlie could talk to one person complaining about Israel's influence in America, and then he could talk to another saying he's hoping that, we can do good things for Israel and help Israel's reputation. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, and I'm going to tell you why they're not mutually exclusive, because I would say the exact same kind of stuff, okay? Because when you are, and I am not, please construe this the right way, okay? I am not anything on par with Charlie. I'm not. But I am a one life path like him. I am born a 5-day like him, and we're both air signs. We've come to very similar conclusions about stuff. We have, I think, similar ways of reasoning. And so I understand like why he was able to do the things that he was doing was because he had this empathy. So he could always meet people where they were at and he could mirror them. And it's not deceitful. It's just that how they feel, and part of you feels where they feel, and you emphasize that part. And that's why he was so good at building bridges with people. None of these conversations are inconsistent. He could have a whole conversation with someone, being with them with the frustration about Zionist propaganda and Zionist, bullying over trying to make America do things. And he could also have a conversation with a bunch of Israeli donors and talk about how can we make it so that, we can improve Israel's standings, because he was really loyal opposition. So what does this mean in terms of my conclusions on all this? Well, what it means is that I don't think that Israel did kill. I don't think the Zionists did kill Charlie Kirk. I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm just saying right now, I don't think the evidence stacks up to the fact that they did it. But it almost doesn't matter, because we are talking about two evil sides of the same coin. It's much more logical here that the communists were the ones that killed him. because it was a direct threat to them, and they were going to blame it on the other faction to create confusion, and it's been working. It's been working really well. So far, there's no concrete evidence of Israeli involvement, Mossad involvement. But if there is, it's not something that's super shocking to me, because at the end of the day, they work together. The reason that you see, so Antifa kills Charlie Kirk, and all the Republicans in Congress, they don't do anything. They don't do anything to fight against them because they don't really want to fight against them. Notice that every single time Trump has tried to fight against the left, the Zionists control in Congress, and Republican Congress always tries to make it about Israel. And everybody freaks out about it, but it's only at the last minute that Trump's inner circle gets that shit removed. So it's not just about that. But they always take an opportunity. You don't think that they're going to take an opportunity here? It makes much more logical sense to me still. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a big conspiracy, and we may find Mossad was involved with some of the intelligence agents who were manipulating, trans Tifa. We may find that out. It doesn't really matter. And this is my main point here. What matters is dealing with a direct threat. The direct threat is using this in RICO to break the communist left in this country. We are also going to have to break Zionist control over the Republicans in Congress. But right to get distracted overly, to get overly distracted with this is not a good thing either. We don't want to start to, we don't want to do we want America first, or do we just want Israel last? Okay. That's a big question I want to ask people. Israel's going to get what's coming to them with this government, with Netanyahu's government. But I do think that there is some degree of using and being used right now. And there's tension within the Trump administration. There's absolutely tension. There's resentment about the fact that they have to deal with these people. So that's why you see these things like the Zionists will let Trump start rounding up, expanding ICE or deporting people, but they have to make sure it goes with the anti-Semitism thing, because the Republicans in Congress are all controlled by the Zionists. And it's a very frustrating balance. But Trump is trying to use both factions to destroy each other, whereas what those factions want to do is they want to both work together to destroy us. And that's why this is difficult. That's why it's stressful. Now, what is the end goal of these two factions? Now, I do not think I have the slide up for this, but there's a Chinese professor in Beijing. I saw the clip. I thought it was very interesting. I have heard this before, but I never thought of it in these terms. They are trying to, if this is correct, but it actually makes sense, because it's trying to think like, well, why would they do this anyway? Because it's just making more people hate Jews. It's just making more people hate Jews. So why would it be something that they would want to do? Well, if their end time goal is to have the world all against Israel, then it's working perfectly well. You have one side plays this, super dominating Zionist power that is killing people left and right and whatever, taking over whatever territory they want to take over. And then you have the other one that is mobilizing the world, the Intifada, against them. This is their end time script to bring about the Antichrist. That's their end time script. So that may be the role of all of this. That's what Netanyahu is doing. That's why he's pushing so far ahead, because, what I was trying to figure out last show, it's like, well, why would he do this? Because it's not good for Israel. But if the point is actually to just have all the Jews have to band together against the rest of the world because the rest of the world is hating them, then this is creating the end time script. They actually want everybody to go against the Jews. So look, this is going to be a hard pill to swallow for some people, but probably not in this audience, because this is not a hateful audience. That's all the more reason to not fall into the trap of blind hatred towards a group. Every single country in this world has cabal influence in it. Some more than others, some fully captured. Some countries only exist because of cabal plans. But the people in those countries are not the evil people. They're not the evil ones doing these things. The Israelis, whatever you want to say about the Gaza stuff, it is a very different situation for them being there. I'm not saying anything that they're doing is right. It's not the point. The point is that you need to resist the temptation to just hate, hate, hate. Because when you hate, hate, hate like that, you end up becoming exactly what they want you to be. That is it. That's what they want. They want you to lose hope. They want you to hate. They want you to not think anymore, rather than focusing on unity and who is trying to divide us, who is trying to turn us against each other, and to go after them. We need deterrence against bad actors, but we do not need to turn against other groups and hate them simply because they're other groups. That doesn't mean that we can't acknowledge the differences, but we cannot just hate them because they're other groups. And that was what Charlie was all about. And they killed him because he was very, very effective at bringing people together who they were trying to divide. He was effective at bringing the sexes together. He was, forgiveness, love, healthy relationships. He was effective at breaking through programming. He didn't make gay people feel hated. He didn't make any people maybe felt hate because of the things he said, because he spoke truth, but he was not a hateful person. He was always trying to find the unity point. And that's why they killed him. That was very dangerous. Whether the communists killed him or the Zionists killed them, it doesn't matter, really, at the end of the day. What matters is that we need to focus and support the administration and what they're trying to do. And we have to have a little bit more faith in what they're doing. I don't know about Pam Bondi. This is the last stuff I'm going to say, okay? And by the way, this is an important point here, right? Before that, it was going to be about a week later, Netanyahu was going to lose power before the October 7th thing. And yeah, there's no way that attack happened. It was allowed to happen. There was no response for 6 hours. I mean, come on, this is nonsense. It's nonsense. The whole story is nonsense. But it was a traumatic event for Israel, like 9/11 was for America. And the same people did it to both countries, okay? I said Israel did 9/11. Well, Israel did October 7, maybe, right? But that wasn't good for the Jews. They are victimized in this as well. And I know people don't want to hear that. But we have to resist that temptation to outgroup everybody. Everybody's bad. They're just all bad, because that's actually what they want. And you can see them saying it up for it. We need to have more faith in this administration and what their intent. If you lose that, if you don't know who you can trust, you have to trust Trump. If you can't trust Trump, then you just log off, go touch grass, because it's over for you. Okay. But Trump has their team has a very important mission. I don't know about Pam Bondi. The fact is, Pam Bondi has been extremely, extremely effective in the courts. We don't like her for her PR. We don't like her for the Epstein stuff. In a lot of ways, she seems like she's out of her league. But this administration has been hit with 4 fucking million lawsuits, and Pam Bondi's won basically every single one of them. So it's a little bit more complicated than people want to give it credit. I think that what she said the other day was totally retarded. She walked it back. Was she just being dumb? Was she told to say that by some Zionist group because they wanted to use hate speech laws as anti-Semitic laws to create more of this dynamic? I don't know. But the bottom line is, if Trump still trusts her at this point, Trump is not as delusional as he was before. Maybe she's the best he can get right now because he has to get people confirmed. But I will say this about Cash. Okay, I am still defending Cash, and I'm going to show you guys one more slide so you can see why I'm defending Cash. Look at this. Senate Judiciary Democrats. The inexperienced FBI director has purged 5,000 dedicated public servants from the FBI. And when Kash Patel is clearly so unfit for leaves, you know, it leaves our country unsafe. This is who he sidelined, and they're all more competent than him. Did anybody on the right, everybody trashing Cash, did anybody on the right know that he had purged 5,000 people from the FBI? Did anybody know that? The Democrats had to tell you that because they're fucking stupid. And they like that was the best thing that they could possibly give for Cash for our side to bring that to people's attention. And that's the same thing when they said, well, Trump, well, you know, Cash made the person who ran the Utah field office resign the week before Charlie Kirk's assassination. Yeah. And guess who that person was? It was some Pakistani woman. And the reason she stepped down actually was because she didn't want, she was actually reassigned someplace else. She didn't want it. It was some like bureaucratic nonsense. But they didn't tell you that. All those people who were trying to tell you Cash was like insinuating Cash was involved with this assassination. It's nonsense. Charlie Kirk was like Trump's son, and Cash is fully with Trump. But we're dealing with really dirty, deep, infiltrated groups. Before Biden left office, they sent like $60 billion or $90 billion out the door. They're playing with that right now. USAID cuts notwithstanding. So let's keep our eye on the ball. We'll find out what happens. There's definitely more to this story with the FBI shooter. You know, that whole dialogue between the shooter and between Robinson and his, you know, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, clearly fabricated. I don't know whether the FBI fabricated it or whether they fabricated it to absolve the lover. It doesn't really matter. We're going to find out some things. We're not going to find out other things. But we still have to go after these leftist groups. That is the target. That is the danger in front of us, the immediate danger in front of us. And if Trump is using the neocons by allowing them with their sick bloodlust obsession to take out targets like Hamas's leadership in Doha, that doesn't mean that he is a Zionist. It means that he lets them off the leash sometimes because he has to use their force against the other part of the cabal in order to win. He has to let them attrit each other in a very, very controlled manner so they can't have the kind of conflagrations that they want. It's like you have two rabid dogs that want to attack something. They really want to attack you, but they got to attack something. So you kind of direct it to go against each other. That's what's going on right now. So it's my take. I hope you guys liked it. I hope it was insightful. I hope it clears up some of these things. That's why, you know, you see no care from the Zionists and government that Charlie Kirk was really killed, because whether they killed him or not, they're going to use the opportunity to get as much, you know, shit that they want through, because that's how it is. All right. I love you guys. Dynamic Man show tomorrow. We're going to be talking about, I'm going to be going through 3 different scenarios where men face fear and how the 3 tenets apply to those 3 scenarios. I'm going to be giving stories too with that. And then we'll be back to COVID Cabal on Friday and we'll see what that topic will be. Anyway, guys, have a great night. I love you all.